Tonight we're stepping back in time, way back to an era of elaborate fashion, questionable hygiene, and a rather peculiar use for something you probably associate more with your breakfast toast than high society glamour. Imagine yourself on a bustling London street in the late 1700s. The air is thick with the smell of horse manure, coal smoke, and wait, is that a hint of stale bread? You rub your eyes trying to clear the haze, and you notice something truly remarkable. Towering wigs, sculpted into architectural marvels, adorn the heads of both men and women. They're not just big, they're incredibly white, almost glowing. You blink again, and a small puff of white dust drifts from a passing lady's coiffure, settling on your sleeve. You might not survive the sheer volume of historical oddities we're about to uncover tonight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing there bewildered as a gentleman in a periwig the size of a small shrub ambles past, a faint scent of something a little too organic wafting from his impressive dome. This isn't just any white powder, you realize. This is a very specific kind of white powder, one that played a pivotal role in Georgian fashion, hygiene, or lack thereof, and even the economy. You see a wigmaker's shop, its window displaying an array of pre-styled masterpieces, each one seemingly daring the wearer to walk through a doorway without ducking. Inside, a young apprentice is meticulously dusting a particularly grand wig with a large, soft brush. The air in the shop is thick with a fine flour-like dust, and you can't help but notice the faint, almost sweet smell that hangs heavy. It's a smell that might, on another day, make you think of a busy bakery rather than a fashionable salon. This isn't coincidence, you quickly deduce. The connection between what you'd find in a baker's bin and what you'd find on a Georgian head is far more intimate than you could have ever imagined. You see, the fashionable elite of the Georgian era, roughly from the early 1700s to the early 1800s, were utterly obsessed with white wigs. White signified cleanliness, status, and an almost angelic purity, a stark contrast to the grimy realities of city life. But how did they achieve this dazzling whiteness, especially when laundry facilities were primitive and personal hygiene, by modern standards, was, well, let's just say a work in progress? The answer, you discover, lies in the humble, everyday staple, bread, or more accurately, its pulverized, processed cousin. Think of it less as fancy cosmetic powder and more as a sophisticated form of very finely ground, stale breadcrumbs, perhaps with a touch of cornstarch or plaster of Paris thrown in for good measure. One mainstream historical fact you quickly grasp is that this wig powder was absolutely essential to the look. Without it, the wigs would simply appear dull, gray, and utterly unfashionable. They were, in essence, the hairspray and dry shampoo of their time, all rolled into one highly absorbent, flour-based package. As you peer closer into the wigmaker's window, you notice bags stacked in the corner, clearly labeled. They don't say finest hair powder. Instead, they read best quality flour. This quirky tidbit immediately sparks your curiosity. The link is undeniable. The powdered wigs of the Georgian era were largely, if not entirely, reliant on a product that could just as easily have been baked into a loaf of bread. This wasn't some exotic, rare ingredient imported from distant lands. No, this was a byproduct of the local milling industry, a testament to resourcefulness and perhaps a touch of desperation. Imagine explaining this to someone today. Oh yes, my dear, your elegant coiffure is held together by last week's discarded bread. You can almost hear the collective gasp of horror. And yet, this was the norm. It was a common, everyday practice, as unremarkable to them as putting on a pair of socks is to you. It makes you wonder how many times a Georgian aristocrat might have accidentally sneezed a cloud of what was essentially a very expensive breakfast ingredient. You chuckle at the thought. The whole idea is so wonderfully absurd, a testament to how far fashion can push the boundaries of common sense. You also wonder if there were ever any instances of ambitious squirrels attempting to make off with particularly well-powdered wigs, mistaking them for an unexpected snack. Probably not, but the image is certainly amusing. Historians still debate the exact recipes for these powders, though. While flour was undeniably the base, what else was mixed in? Some argue for plaster of Paris to give it extra stiffness and hold. Others suggest powdered starch, and still others point to more unsavory additions like bone dust for a brighter white. The debate largely hinges on the availability and cost of these various materials, as well as the desired effect. A truly bright, almost luminous white would have required more expensive additives, while a more subdued off-white could have been achieved with simpler flour. It was a complex industry, far more intricate than just grinding up some old bread. You see an elderly woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, carefully scooping a handful of the white powder from a sack. She's not a wig maker, but a domestic servant, likely preparing a wig for her mistress. The sheer volume of powder needed for a single household, let alone an entire city, would have been staggering. It speaks to a level of material consumption that we rarely consider in our modern, often recycling-conscious world. You wonder if anyone ever tried to bake a cake with it. Probably not. That would be just awful. You continue your journey down the cobbled streets, the scent of flour and something vaguely floral, perhaps lavender or rosewater, added to mask the natural odor of stale flour, lingering in the air. The ubiquity of the powdered wig is striking. From the highest echelons of society to the aspiring middle classes, everyone who was anyone, and even those who desperately wanted to be someone, sported these grand powdered confections. It was a clear marker of social standing, a visual shorthand for wealth and refinement. The bigger and whiter your wig, the more prestigious your position. This was a form of conspicuous consumption, a public display of one's ability to afford not only the wig itself, which was often made of human hair, goat hair, or even horse hair, but also the constant upkeep and, of course, the copious amounts of powder. Imagine the daily ritual, waking up, donning your wig, and then enduring a thorough powdering, often performed by a servant or even a specialized wig dresser. You can almost feel the fine dust settling on your clothes, clinging to your eyelashes and making your throat tickle. It was an inescapable part of Georgian life, as common as the morning mist. The sheer impracticality of it all is almost comical to your modern sensibilities. These wigs were heavy, hot, and incredibly uncomfortable, and the powder, while aesthetically pleasing, was not exactly beneficial for one's scalp or health. Think of the itching, the accumulation of dirt and grease beneath the layers of powder, and the inevitable flaking that would occur throughout the day. It's a wonder anyone managed to appear dignified. And yet they did. Or at least, they tried very hard to. You spot a rather portly gentleman struggling to navigate a narrow doorway, his wig scraping against the top frame, sending a small flurry of white dust cascading around him. He simply brushes it off with a practiced hand, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. This truly was a different era, where the dictates of fashion trumped comfort and often common sense. You can almost hear his exasperated sigh. Perhaps he muttered, "Oh, for goodness sake, not again," under his breath. It truly was a commitment. A quirky or fringe tidbit you pick up is that some members of the lower classes, who couldn't afford genuine powdered wigs, would often resort to simply sprinkling flour directly onto their natural hair to emulate the look. It was a cheap, albeit less effective, way to participate in the fashion trend. Imagine the sight: a street vendor hawking his wares with a slightly sticky, flour-dusted head, attempting to project an air of sophistication. It speaks volumes about the pervasive influence of this fashion and the lengths people would go to fit in, or at least appear to. This improvised solution highlights the societal pressure to conform to the prevailing styles, even if it meant looking a bit like a baker who had a particularly rough morning. It also provides a humorous mental image. You can almost see a small child pointing and giggling. "Look, mama, that man has flour for hair." Historians still debate the true economic impact of wig powder on the flour market. Was it a significant drain on food resources, particularly during times of scarcity? Or was it merely a convenient way to utilize lower-grade flour that might not have been suitable for baking? Some scholars argue that during periods of poor harvests, the demand for wig powder could have exacerbated food shortages, leading to higher bread prices and hardship for the poor. Others contend that the amount of flour used for wigs, while seemingly large, was relatively small compared to the overall demand for bread, and that the primary impact was on the quality of flour used, rather than its overall availability. It's a complex question with no easy answers, reflecting the intricate web of economic and social factors at play. You can almost picture a heated debate in a Georgian coffee house, with gentlemen passionately arguing about the ethics of using perfectly good flour for their hair, while others scoff at such sentimental notions, insisting on the primacy of fashion. It was a real concern for many, a genuine source of public discourse. You overhear a group of well-dressed ladies gossiping outside a milliner's shop. One of them complains about the sheer cost of maintaining her wig, lamenting that it costs more to powder my hair than to feed my entire staff for a week. Another chimes in, "And the mess. My husband leaves a trail of white dust wherever he goes, like a particularly stylish ghost." You can't help but smile. Even for the wealthy, it was clearly an expensive and somewhat cumbersome affair. Yet they endured it, a testament to the powerful allure of social status and the rigid rules of Georgian etiquette. You wonder if they ever considered just shaving their heads and wearing elaborate hats. Probably not. That would be far too radical. The thought of them trying to economize by perhaps sharing their powder with a neighbor, however, seems utterly unthinkable in this world of strict social hierarchy. It really was an expensive habit, one that drained considerable resources. As you walk further, you notice the architectural details of the Georgian buildings, the symmetrical facades, the elegant fanlights above doorways. Everything speaks of order, refinement, and a certain measured grandeur, a stark contrast to the slightly chaotic and surprisingly messy world of wig powder. It's a fascinating paradox, a society that valued external appearances so highly, yet embraced a fashion that was inherently dusty and by modern standards rather unhygienic. This brings to mind the ongoing tension between aesthetics and practicality that has always existed in human history. We often prioritize how things look over how well they function or how comfortable they are. The Georgian wig is a perfect illustration of this human tendency, taken to an extreme. You see a wigmaker's assistant emerge from a shop, his hands covered in a fine white film, looking rather like a baker who's just finished kneading a particularly large batch of dough. He sneezes, and a cloud of white dust erupts around him. It's a constant battle, you realize, to keep the powder contained. The process of powdering a wig was not a simple dusting. It involved several steps. First, the wig would be placed on a wig stand. Then, a large powdering cloak, often made of linen or silk, would be draped over the wearer's shoulders to protect their clothes. The powder itself was often applied with a bellows or a large puff, ensuring an even coating. Sometimes, a fine comb was used to distribute the powder through the individual strands of hair. This was a time-consuming ritual, one that would have been performed daily for those who could afford it. You can imagine the patience required, both on the part of the wearer and the person applying the powder. It was an art form in itself, a delicate balance between achieving maximum whiteness and avoiding an unsightly, lumpy appearance. One mainstream historical fact is that the demand for wig powder was so high that dedicated powdering rooms were sometimes built in Grandeur houses, specifically designed to contain the mess and facilitate the daily ritual. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some ingenious individuals created powdering boxes, or powdering closets, which were essentially small, enclosed spaces designed to minimize the spread of the powder. These could be as simple as a large wooden box with an opening for the head, or more elaborate, purpose-built chambers. The idea was to contain the inevitable cloud of dust that accompanied the powdering process, protecting furniture and other members of the household from the pervasive white film. Imagine stepping into a small, enclosed space, your head emerging from a hole while someone diligently puffs away at your wig. It sounds less like a fashion statement and more like a torture device, but for the Georgian elite, it was a necessary inconvenience. You can almost hear the muffled complaints from within these boxes. Is it done yet? I can't breathe. A truly dedicated commitment to style, wouldn't you agree? And probably a nightmare for anyone with even the slightest hint of claustrophobia. Historians still debate the extent to which wig powder contributed to respiratory ailments in the Georgian population. While direct evidence is scarce, it's reasonable to assume that constant inhalation of fine particulate matter, especially flour dust, would have had some negative health consequences, particularly for wig makers, barbers, and domestic servants who were exposed to it daily. Some scholars point to records of increased instances of coughs, wheezing, and lung complaints among those professions as circumstantial evidence. Others argue that the overall air quality in Georgian cities was so poor, with pervasive coal smoke and other pollutants, that wig powder likely played a minor role in comparison. It's a difficult question to answer definitively, given the limitations of historical medical records. However, you can't help but feel a pang of sympathy for those who spent their working lives enveloped in a cloud of breadcrumbs. You also wonder if anyone ever accidentally snorted it. Given the prevalence, it seems highly likely, leading to a rather flowery cough. You see a young child, no older than 5, running through the street, completely oblivious to the elaborate fashion around him. He catches sight of a powdered wig, and with the uninhibited curiosity of a child, reaches out to touch it, leaving a small, dusty smudge on the pristine white surface. The wig's owner, a stern-looking man, gives the child a disapproving glare, but the damage is done. It's a brief, amusing moment that highlights the fragility of these elaborate creations and the constant battle against the elements and, apparently, curious children. You almost expect the child's mother to arrive with a damp cloth and a stern apology. Perhaps she even carried a small brush and a pouch of powder for emergencies, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. It would not be surprising at all, given the pervasive nature of this fashion. The street continues to buzz with activity. Carriages clatter by, street vendors shout their wares, and the constant murmur of conversations fills the air. You notice how different the pace of life seems, unhurried in some ways, yet intensely focused on the minutiae of social interaction and appearance. The powdered wig wasn't just a fashion statement. It was a social tool, a non-verbal cue that instantly communicated one's standing in the complex Georgian hierarchy. It was a visual language understood by all, a testament to the power of sartorial choices in shaping social dynamics. You see a group of gentlemen huddled together, their powdered wigs almost touching as they engage in animated discussion. Their wigs act as a kind of halo, enhancing their presence, making them appear more formidable or distinguished. It's a fascinating insight into the psychology of fashion, how something as simple as a powdered head can project an image of authority or elegance. The practice of powdering wigs wasn't confined to England. It was a widespread European phenomenon, with variations in style and intensity across different countries. The French court, under Louis XIV and later Louis XV, famously embraced extravagant powdered wigs, often adorned with ribbons, jewels, and even miniature models of ships or gardens. The English, while perhaps less flamboyant than their French counterparts, still embraced the trend with gusto. This international adoption of a particular fashion, based on a seemingly mundane material like flour, highlights the interconnectedness of European culture during this period. One mainstream historical fact is that the French aristocracy, in particular, used vast quantities of wig powder, often scented with expensive perfumes, to mask body odor in an age when bathing was not a daily practice. It's a rather pungent thought, isn't it? The irony of using flour to signify cleanliness, while simultaneously masking a general lack of it, is not lost on you. A quirky or fringe tidbit you come across is the existence of wig powdering dogs. These were small, specially trained dogs, usually poodles, that were taught to retrieve fallen powder puffs or to carry small bags of powder for their masters. While perhaps more of an anecdote than a widespread practice, it speaks to the lengths people would go to integrate this fashion into every aspect of their lives, even their pets. Imagine a tiny poodle trotting along, a miniature powder bag clamped gently in its mouth, ready to assist its elegant owner. It's a truly delightful, if somewhat eccentric, image. You can almost hear the laughter of the ladies as their pampered pooch retrieves a runaway puff. It certainly adds a touch of whimsical absurdity to the whole powdered wig saga. And one wonders if these dogs, too, eventually developed a fine dusting of powder on their fur. Probably. Historians still debate the specific reasons for the eventual decline of the powdered wig. Was it simply a shift in fashion trends, a natural evolution towards more natural hairstyles? Or were there deeper social and economic factors at play? Some scholars point to the French Revolution as a catalyst, arguing that the powdered wig became associated with the excesses of the aristocracy, and was therefore rejected by the revolutionary government in favor of simpler, more egalitarian styles. Others suggest that the rising cost of flour, coupled with increasing awareness of its nutritional value, made the practice seem wasteful and extravagant. It's likely a combination of these factors, a gradual shift in public opinion and aesthetic sensibilities. You can imagine the whispers beginning in the salons. Maida. Haven't you heard? Powdered wigs are so last season. The winds of change blow slowly, but eventually, even the most entrenched fashions succumb to their force. You also consider that perhaps the sheer inconvenience of it all simply became too much for people to bear. You observe a street artist sketching caricatures of passers-by. He exaggerates the wigs, making them even more enormous and absurd, clearly poking fun at the prevailing fashion. It's a subtle form of social commentary, a gentle mockery of the elite's obsession with their powdered coiffures. Even in an era of strict social hierarchies, there was still room for satire and humor, a way for the common folk to express their amusement at the follies of the upper classes. You imagine the artist earning a few coins for each chuckle he elicits from his audience. His drawing captures the essence of the absurdity perfectly, a testament to the power of art to reflect and comment on its time. Perhaps he even uses a bit of actual flour to create a textured, powdered effect on his sketches, a meta-commentary in itself. The afternoon sun casts long shadows down the street, highlighting the intricate details of the wrought iron balconies and the decorative lintels above the doorways. The powdered wigs, far from being mere adornments, were integral to the visual landscape of Georgian society, as much a part of the architecture as the buildings themselves. They were a symbol of an era, a visual shorthand for the tastes and values of a particular time. You realize that to truly understand the Georgian era, you must first understand the powdered wig, and by extension, the very real, very everyday role of flour in its creation. It's a curious pathway into history, isn't it? From a simple ingredient to a grand fashion statement, the journey of bread crumbs, or rather their refined cousins, is surprisingly rich and complex. You see a delivery cart, laden with sacks, rumble past. The sacks are clearly marked flour, but you now know that a significant portion of that precious cargo is destined not for the bakery, but for the barber shop. The maintenance of these elaborate wigs was a full-time occupation for many. Wigmakers were highly skilled artisans, often working long hours to create, style, and repair these sartorial masterpieces. They would meticulously comb, curl, and secure the hair, often using a mixture of animal fats or pomades to give it shape, before the final, crucial step of powdering. The powder not only gave the wig its distinctive white appearance, but also helped to absorb grease and prolong the freshness of the style. It was, in effect, a primitive form of dry shampoo, allowing the wearer to go longer between full wig cleanings, which would have been a much more involved and time-consuming process. One mainstream historical fact is that wigmakers often kept their own secret recipes for their powders, some adding specific scents or even a hint of blue or lavender tint to achieve a unique shade of white. It was a competitive industry, with each wigmaker vying for the most fashionable and effective powder. A quirky or fringe tidbit you learn is that there were even instances of people stealing wig powder directly from bakeries or flour mills during times of extreme poverty or high demand. While perhaps not a widespread phenomenon, such incidents highlight the perceived value of this seemingly mundane substance. Imagine a desperate individual sneaking into a flour mill under the cover of darkness, not to steal bread, but to pilfer bags of flour for their wig. It speaks to the incredible societal pressure to maintain appearances, even when faced with hardship. It's a rather poignant image, one that adds a touch of human drama to the story of wig powder. You almost expect a chase scene involving a flour-covered thief and a very confused night watchman. Stop! You've stolen flour. A truly bizarre crime indeed. Historians still debate the environmental impact of the powdered wig trend. While the primary ingredient was flour, which is biodegradable, the sheer volume used, coupled with the additives like plaster of Paris, would have created a considerable amount of dust and waste. Was it a significant pollutant in Georgian cities? Some scholars argue that the amount of airborne dust generated by wig powder, combined with coal smoke and other industrial pollutants, contributed to the poor air quality and urban grime of the era. Others suggest that the impact was localized and relatively minor compared to other sources of pollution. It's a challenging question to assess, given the lack of comprehensive environmental data from the period. However, you can't help but notice the persistent film of white dust on windowsills and ledges as you walk, a silent testament to the pervasiveness of the powder. You wonder if anyone ever developed a special technique for cleaning powder off everything. Probably a dedicated servant with a very long feather dust. Lard. You notice a small, rather disheveled dog trotting along the street, occasionally pausing to scratch vigorously behind its ear. It's a stray, clearly not as pampered as the wig-powdering poodles you heard about earlier. Its fur is a dull, matted brown, a stark contrast to the pristine white of the passing wigs. It's a fleeting moment, but it serves as a gentle reminder of the disparities in Georgian society, where some dogs were trained to carry powder and others simply scrounged for scraps. The irony of such a luxurious fashion existing alongside such harsh realities is not lost on you. You even briefly consider if it would try to roll in a fresh pile of powder if given the chance. Perhaps as a canine attempt at a beauty treatment, or merely to scratch an itch. Either way, it paints a funny, slightly sad picture. As evening approaches, the gas lamps begin to flicker to life, casting a warm, slightly eerie glow on the streets. The powdered wigs seem to gleam even more brightly in the fading light, almost ethereal against the growing shadows. The theatricality of Georgian fashion truly comes alive at this hour, as people prepare for evening entertainments, balls, and soirees. The wig, now fully powdered and styled, was the crowning glory of an elaborate ensemble, meticulously chosen to convey status, wealth, and adherence to the latest trends. You imagine the painstaking preparations, the hours spent in front of a mirror, ensuring every curl was in place and every strand perfectly powdered. It was a serious business, a crucial part of projecting the desired image in a society that placed immense value on outward appearances. The popularity of powdered wigs reached its zenith in the mid to late 18th century, becoming almost universally adopted by the upper and middle classes. They were not just for men. Women also wore elaborate powdered coiffures, often even grander and more intricate than those of their male counterparts. Think of the towering poufs, adorned with feathers, ribbons, and even miniature scenes, all held together by a framework of wire or horsehair, and then, of course, heavily powdered. This unisex fashion trend demonstrates the sheer power of social conformity and the desire to emulate the elite. One mainstream historical fact is that the sheer height of some women's wigs reached such ludicrous proportions that they often had to stoop to enter carriages or pass through doorways, a testament to the triumph of fashion over practicality. You can almost hear the muffled giggles as they squeeze through an opening, their elaborate hairdos brushing the ceiling. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely fashion-conscious individuals would sleep with their wigs still on, albeit carefully protected, to avoid the laborious process of restyling and repowdering each morning. They would use specially designed wig stands or even elaborate neck pillows to keep their coiffures intact. Imagine trying to get a comfortable night's sleep with a powdered monument perched on your head. It speaks to an almost obsessive dedication to maintaining appearances, even in the privacy of one's own bed. You can't help but picture a Georgian gentleman waking up with a crick in his neck, a fine dusting of powder on his pillow, and perhaps a rogue curl dangling precariously. Good heavens, darling, my wig is listing to starboard. It truly sounds like a dedication to discomfort. Historians still debate the psychological impact of wearing powdered wigs on the individuals themselves. Did it enhance their sense of identity and confidence, making them feel more important and powerful? Or did it create a sense of artificiality and detachment, forcing them to adopt a persona that was not entirely their own? Some scholars argue that the wig became an extension of the self, an integral part of one's public identity. Others suggest that the constant artifice and performance required to maintain the image could have led to a certain degree of alienation. It's a fascinating area of psychological inquiry, exploring the relationship between outward appearance and inner self. You can almost imagine someone feeling trapped by their elaborate coiffure, longing for the freedom of their natural hair. Perhaps a secret, unpowdered rebellion underneath it all. You notice a wig maker closing up his shop for the night. He's covered from head to toe in a fine layer of white dust, looking as if he's just emerged from a snowstorm. He yawns widely, clearly exhausted from a day of endless powdering and styling. His work, though seemingly mundane, played a crucial role in shaping the visual culture of his era. He is an unsung hero of Georgian fashion, a master of the powdered arts. You can almost hear him sigh with relief as he finally locks the door, looking forward to a well-deserved, wig-free rest. You wonder if he ever dreamt in white, or if the ghost of bread crumbs haunted his sleep. Probably. The streets are now quieter, illuminate, ed solely by the soft glow of the gas lamps and the occasional lantern carried by a late-night pedestrian. You still catch glimpses of powdered wigs, now slightly less pristine, perhaps with a faint smudge here or a stray curl there, evidence of a day spent in motion. This slight dishevelment actually makes them seem more real, less like perfect sculptures, and more like the worn accoutrements of everyday life. The sheer volume of this trend, the fact that nearly every person of consequence wore a powdered wig, underscores its profound impact on Georgian society. It was not just a passing fad, it was a deeply ingrained social norm, a testament to the power of collective fashion choices. You reflect on how even seemingly minor details, like the choice of hair powder, can reveal so much about an entire historical period. The sources of the flour for wig powder were varied. While some came from purpose-grown grains, a significant portion was likely derived from lower-grade flour, perhaps not suitable for human consumption due to imperfections or slight spoilage. This recycling of a less-than-perfect product for a non-culinary purpose highlights a practical aspect of the trend. It wasn't always about using the finest, freshest flour. Sometimes, it was about utilizing what was available and not wasting resources. This resourceful approach is a mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked in the more glamorous narrative of powdered wigs. It speaks to a certain pragmatic sensibility within the Georgian era, even amidst its excesses. Imagine the discussions among millers and wig makers, negotiating prices for these specific grades of flour. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some unscrupulous individuals would sometimes mix ground chalk or plaster of Paris with genuine flour to stretch their supplies, or to create a brighter, whiter powder at a lower cost. This adulteration, while offering an economic advantage, could also lead to issues like scalp irritation or even respiratory problems for those exposed to it over long periods. It was a common practice in many industries to cut corners and maximize profit, and the wig powder trade was no exception. This practice reminds you of modern-day product adulteration, showing that some human tendencies never truly change. You can almost hear the indignant complaints of a Georgian fashionista, discovering her wig powder is making her scalp itch. Good heavens, my dear, this powder is simply dreadful. It feels like I'm wearing a bag of plaster on my head. Historians still debate the precise role of the wig tax in the decline of powdered wigs. In 1795, the British government introduced a tax on hair powder, likely as a revenue-generating measure during wartime. Some scholars argue that this tax significantly contributed to the decline in popularity of powdered wigs, making them even more expensive and therefore less accessible to the middle classes. Others contend that the tax was merely a final nail in the coffin of a trend that was already waning due to changing fashion sensibilities and the influence of the French Revolution. It's difficult to isolate the exact impact of any single factor, but it's clear that the tax played some role in accelerating the shift away from powdered coiffures. You can imagine the outrage among the fashionable set, an additional burden placed upon their already elaborate expenses. A tax on powder. What next? A tax on breathing. You see a young couple strolling arm in arm, both sporting fashionably powdered wigs, albeit slightly less extravagant than those of the older generation. They laugh softly, sharing a private joke, their white dusted heads bobbing in unison. It's a sweet moment, a reminder that even amidst the rigid social structures and peculiar fashions, human connection and affection endure. The wigs, for them, are simply a part of their world, a backdrop to their budding romance. It's a testament to how even the most outlandish trends become normalized within their own time. Perhaps he even offers to repowder her wig for her later, a small gesture of affection. Allow me, my dear, your elegance must never fade. The night air is growing cooler, and the faint scent of damp earth now mixes with the lingering aroma of flower. You reflect on the sheer scale of the powdered wig industry. It wasn't just about the wig makers and powder suppliers. It encompassed a vast network of tradespeople, from hair merchants who imported human and animal hair, to comb makers, pomade manufacturers, and even specialized wig cleaners, who would periodically depowder and refresh the elaborate creations. It was a truly significant sector of the Georgian economy, providing livelihoods for thousands of individuals. This intricate ecosystem, all centered around a fashion trend, speaks volumes about the economic impact of seemingly superficial desires. You realize that a simple fashion statement can ripple through an entire economy, creating jobs and driving innovation, even if that innovation involves better ways to grind up bread. The specific characteristics of the flour used for wig powder were important. It needed to be very fine, almost talc-like, to ensure an even, smooth application and to prevent a lumpy appearance. This required sophisticated milling techniques for the era, transforming coarser grains into a delicate powder. The whiter the flour, the better, as extreme whiteness was highly prized. This demand for a specific type of flour would have influenced agricultural practices and milling processes, creating a niche market for specialized producers. One mainstream historical fact is that various additives, such as plaster of Paris or finely ground starch from potatoes or rice, were often mixed with the flour to achieve a brighter white, a smoother texture, or to increase the powder's staying power. These recipes were often closely guarded trade secrets, passed down through generations of wig makers. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some affluent individuals would occasionally use scented powders, infused with expensive perfumes like civet or musk, to add an extra layer of luxury and to mask any unpleasant odors. These scented powders would have been far more costly than their unscented counterparts, further signifying the wearer's wealth and status. Imagine the sensory experience of being in a room filled with the combined aromas of flour, horsehair, and exotic animal musk. It certainly paints a vivid, if somewhat overwhelming, olfactory picture of Georgian high society. You can almost hear someone exclaim, "Oh, darling, your powder smells divine." Is that civet? A truly unique blend of aromas indeed, and probably quite overwhelming in a confined space. Historians still debate the extent to which the use of wig powder contributed to the spread of disease, particularly head lice. While the powder itself was not a breeding ground for lice, it could have masked their presence, making it harder to detect and treat infestations. The infrequent cleaning of wigs, coupled with the communal use of combs and brushes in some barbershops, could have facilitated the transmission of these unwelcome parasites. Some scholars argue that the powdered wig trend created a perfect environment for lice to thrive, while others maintain that lice were simply a fact of life in Georgian times, regardless of hair fashion. It's a rather unpleasant thought, isn't it? The glamorous exterior hiding a less than glamorous reality. You might feel a faint itch on your own scalp just thinking about it. You see a group of servants diligently sweeping the streets outside a grand townhouse. A thin layer of white dust, clearly from discarded wig powder, coats the cobblestones. It's a constant battle against the powdery residue, a daily testament to the pervasiveness of the fashion. The servants wear simple, unpowdered caps, their faces etched with the weariness of a long day's labor. Their world is one of practicalities and constant cleaning, a stark contrast to the elaborate and often impractical lives of their employers. You can almost hear the soft swish of their brooms against the dusty ground, a rhythmic sound that accompanies the end of a long Georgian day. They likely muttered under their breath about the endless dust, a silent complaint against the demands of high fashion. The moon rises high in the night sky, casting a silver sheen on the rooftops. You imagine the countless wigs, now put away for the night, perhaps resting on their stands in darkened dressing rooms, waiting to be revitalized with a fresh dusting of flour in the morning. The cyclical nature of this fashion, the daily ritual of powdering and styling, speaks to the persistence and dedication required to maintain one's appearance in Georgian society. It was not a casual endeavor. It was a disciplined commitment, a regular investment of time, effort, and resources. This consistent maintenance underscores the importance of the wig as a symbol of status and belonging. You realize that a powdered wig was not just an accessory. It was a daily performance, a continuous act of self-presentation. The decline of the powdered wig was a gradual process, not an abrupt cessation. While the French Revolution and the wig tax certainly played roles, broader shifts in aesthetic sensibilities were also at play. The late 18th and early 19th centuries saw a move towards more natural hairstyles, often influenced by classical antiquity. Simpler, unpowdered styles became fashionable, reflecting a changing ideal of beauty and a rejection of the perceived artificiality of the past. This evolution in taste is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the dynamic nature of fashion, its constant flux and reinvention. The Georgian era, with its elaborate wigs, gave way to the Regency era, with its more understated elegance. You can almost see the fashion magazines of the day announcing, "Out with the powder, in with tea." He natural curl. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some enterprising individuals would collect the discarded wig powder from streets and public places, sift it, and then resell it, often at a reduced price. This recycled powder would have been less pure and perhaps contained more dirt and grime, but it offered a cheaper alternative for those on a tighter budget. It's a fascinating example of resourcefulness, and the unofficial economy that often springs up around popular trends. Imagine the illicit trade of dusty, grayish powder sold discreetly in back alleys. "Psst, buddy, want some slightly used elegance?" You can almost hear the hushed negotiations, a transaction as peculiar as the fashion it served. It truly was a market for everything. Historians still debate the long-term impact of the powdered wig trend on grain production and agricultural practices. Did the consistent demand for flour for wigs encourage farmers to cultivate specific types of wheat or to increase overall grain output? Or was the amount used for wigs relatively minor compared to the demand for food, with little discernible impact on agricultural patterns? Some scholars argue that it provided a consistent market for lower-grade flour, which might otherwise have gone to waste. Others suggest that any impact was negligible in the grand scheme of things. It's a complex economic question that requires detailed analysis of agricultural records and market prices from the period. You can almost picture a farmer scratching his head, wondering if he should plant more wheat this year. For the wigs, you know. You notice a small, forgotten wig stand, leaning against the wall of a deserted alleyway. It's a humble object, now covered in dust and cobwebs, a relic of a bygone era. It serves as a quiet monument to the countless hours spent preparing and maintaining the elaborate coiffures, a silent witness to a fashion that once dominated the social landscape. Its stillness speaks volumes about the impermanence of trends, how even the most pervasive styles eventually fade into history, leaving behind only echoes and faded memories. You wonder if it was discarded by a wig maker who simply gave up, or perhaps it was a treasured possession that simply outlived its purpose. Either way, it's a poignant symbol of a fashion's inevitable demise. The night deepens, and the city begins to settle into a hushed stillness, broken only by the distant clatter of a carriage or the mournful cry of an owl. You imagine the quiet dignity of the abandoned wigs, stripped of their daily glamour, now merely structures of hair and wire, awaiting their morning transformation. The ritual of powdering was not just about aesthetics. It was about performance, about presenting a carefully constructed image to the world. And the materials, humble as they were elevated to instruments of this grand performance. It's a compelling example of how cultural practices can transform everyday objects into symbols of status and identity. The flour, once destined for a loaf of bread, becomes the very essence of Georgian high fashion. The cultural significance of the powdered wig extended beyond mere fashion. It became a symbol of authority, intellect, and social standing. Judges wore powdered wigs in court, barristers donned them to signify their legal expertise, and members of parliament often sported them to convey gravitas and experience. The wig, therefore, transcended the realm of mere adornment and entered the sphere of professional uniform, lending an air of solemnity and tradition to formal proceedings. This transition from fashion accessory to professional attire is a mainstream historical fact that underscores the multifaceted role of the powdered wig in Georgian society. Imagine trying to take seriously a judge who appears in court with disheveled, unpowdered hair. The wig was an essential part of their professional identity. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that there were even instances of wig riots, or public protests against the powdered wig, particularly during times of food scarcity. People would sometimes view the extensive use of flour for wigs as an extravagant waste, especially when bread was scarce or expensive. These isolated incidents highlight the underlying social tensions and the perception of the wig as a symbol of aristocratic excess. Imagine a mob descending on a wigmaker's shop, not to loot valuables, but to confiscate bags of flour. It's a vivid image of class struggle, fought over something as seemingly trivial as hair powder. You can almost hear the shouts of bread, not wigs. It truly shows the deep-seated resentment that could fester in society. Historians still debate the gendered aspects of wig wearing. While both men and women wore powdered wigs, the styles, symbolism, and societal expectations associated with them differed. For men, wigs often conveyed power, intellect, and a certain masculine gravitas. For women, they emphasized beauty, femininity, and adherence to intricate, often impractical trends. Did the wig restrict women more, physically and socially, due to their greater size and complexity? Or did it offer them a unique avenue for artistic expression and social display? It's a complex discussion, exploring the nuanced ways in which fashion intersected with gender roles in Georgian society. You can almost imagine the hushed conversations among women, discussing the latest wig styles and the inevitable discomforts they entailed. "My dear, I swear this new poof will give me a permanent crick in my neck." You spot a single discarded powder puff lying on the ground, a poignant reminder of the day's vanished glamour. It's just a small, insignificant object, yet it carries the echoes of countless powdering rituals, of fashion trends and social aspirations. It's a humble artifact, now left to the elements, a silent testament to the fleeting nature of human vanity. You wonder whose wig it last touched, what grand coiffure it helped to create. It's a small piece of history, overlooked and forgotten, yet holding a surprising amount of untold stories within its dusty fibers. And you can almost feel the softness of it against your fingers, imagining its past life. The silence of the night deepens, and a gentle breeze rustles through the leaves of the trees. You imagine the vast network of individuals whose lives were intertwined with the production and consumption of wig powder. From the farmers who grew the grain, to the millers who ground it, the merchants who transported it, the wig makers who applied it, and the countless servants who cleaned up its pervasive residue. It was a true ecosystem built around a single fashion trend. This interconnectedness of seemingly disparate parts of society, all driven by the demand for a particular look, speaks to the profound influence of fashion on economic and social structures. It wasn't just a matter of personal choice. It was an industry, a way of life for many. You realize that beneath the polished veneer of Georgian elegance lay a sprawling, industrious world, powered by breadcrumbs. The breadcrumb aspect of wig powder, while perhaps an oversimplification, is not far from the truth in terms of its fundamental composition. The process involved grinding grains, typically wheat, into a very fine flour, which then served as the base for the powder. Sometimes, stale bread itself was dried and ground, particularly for lower quality powders, to achieve a similar effect. This direct link to a staple food item is a mainstream historical fact that often surprises modern audiences, highlighting the resourcefulness and pragmatism of the era. They used what was readily available, even if it meant repurposing food items for fashion. It makes you wonder how inventive people can become when faced with a pervasive trend and limited resources. You can almost hear a baker complaining, "Not again. They're grinding up my perfectly good loaves for their silly hair." A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some historical accounts suggest that during particularly cold winters, people would sometimes wear their wigs indoors to provide an extra layer of insulation. While perhaps not a primary function, the sheer volume and thickness of the powdered wigs would undoubtedly have offered some protection against the chill. Imagine, a drafty Georgian manor house, and a family huddled by the fire, their elaborate wigs serving a dual purpose of fashion and warmth. It adds a touch of unexpected practicality to an otherwise extravagant accessory. You can almost see someone shivering, then thinking, well, at least my head is warm. It's a rather humorous and slightly sad image. Historians still debate the precise proportion of various ingredients in historical wig powders. While flour was the consistent base, the ratio of additives like starch, plaster of Paris, or even perfumed talcs would have varied greatly depending on the desired effect, cost, and availability. Did some recipes produce a more durable powder? Did others offer a brighter white? The lack of standardized manufacturing processes and the proprietary nature of many wig makers' recipes make it challenging to recreate these formulations accurately. It's a mystery that continues to intrigue historical chemists and fashion historians alike. You can almost picture a Georgian chemist meticulously experimenting with different powders, a tiny pestle and mortar in hand, trying to achieve the perfect shade of blinding white. You see a lone watchman, his lantern casting dancing shadows on the deserted street. He pauses for a moment, his gaze fixed on a tall, elegant townhouse, perhaps contemplating the lives of the wealthy individuals sleeping within, their powdered wigs resting in anticipation of the morning. His world, a practical one of vigilance and simple duties, stands in stark contrast to the frivolous, yet utterly pervasive world of Georgian fashion. His presence, symbol of order and everyday routine, brings a sense of grounding to the slightly fantastical journey you've been on. He's the anchor in this sea of powder and pomade, and he probably just wishes people would stop shedding flour all over his patrol route. The stillness of the night is almost absolute now, a quiet canvas on which to paint the lingering images of Georgian society. You've walked through a world where a common foodstuff became an indispensable element of high fashion, a testament to human ingenuity and perhaps a touch of absurdity. The journey of flour from the miller's sack to the powdered wig is a microcosm of Georgian life, revealing its social structures, economic realities, and aesthetic sensibilities. It's a reminder that history is often found in the most unexpected places, in the everyday objects and practices that shaped the lives of people long ago. You realize that understanding why Georgian wig powder was basically bread crumbs is not just about a fashion trend. It's about understanding an entire epoch. The elaborate hairstyles of the Georgian era were not just about aesthetics. They also served a practical purpose in an age when regular hair washing was less common. The powder, particularly if scented, helped to absorb oils and mask odors, effectively acting as a dry shampoo and deodorant for the hair. This practical aspect is a mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked in favor of the more visually striking elements of the wigs. It wasn't purely about vanity. There was a functional element to the powdering ritual, a way to maintain a semblance of freshness in a less hygienic environment. Imagine the sheer relief of having a good layer of absorbent powder on your wig when a proper wash was days or even weeks away. A truly ingenious, if slightly dusty, solution. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some wig makers would occasionally incorporate real animal hair, such as horsehair or goat hair, into their human hair wigs to provide extra volume and structure. These animal hairs would also be meticulously powdered to blend seamlessly with the human hair, creating a truly impressive and often enormous coiffure. The idea of combining human hair with animal hair, then coating it all in flour, is a rather bizarre yet fascinating testament to the lengths people would go to achieve the desired fashionable look. You can almost hear a Georgian lady exclaiming, "My dear, I simply must have more volume. Fetch the horsehair." It truly highlights the unconventional methods employed in pursuit of beauty, and you can't help but wonder if the horse ever noticed it was missing a few strands. Historians still debate the specific impact of the powdered wig on social mobility. While the wig was a clear marker of status, did its high cost and intricate maintenance create an insurmountable barrier for those from lower social classes who aspired to ascend? Or did it, conversely, provide a visual means for individuals to dress up and project an image of higher status, even if their actual wealth was limited? Some scholars argue that it reinforced existing social hierarchies, while others suggest it offered a degree of aspirational fluidity. It's a complex question that touches upon the interplay between material culture, social class, and individual ambition. You can almost picture a young man saving every penny just to afford a decent wig, hoping it would open doors to a better life. A truly expensive gamble, but one many were willing to take. You notice a single, faint wisp of white dust clinging to a lamppost, illuminated by its soft glow. It's a ghost of the day's activity, a tiny, almost invisible reminder of the pervasive fashion that once dominated these streets. It's a silent witness to countless individuals, their powdered heads held high, moving through their lives, oblivious to the fact that their grand appearance was built upon the humble foundation of ground grain. It's a testament to the enduring power of history, even in the smallest, most ephemeral details. And you might even find yourself reaching out to touch it, just to feel the last lingering trace of Georgian fashion. The city sleeps, a blanket of quiet descending over the grand houses and narrow alleyways. You've uncovered the surprisingly intimate connection between the bakery and the boudoir, a link forged by the dictates of Georgian fashion. The powdered wig, once a symbol of opulence and refinement, now appears to you as a quirky testament to resourcefulness and the cyclical nature of trends. It stands as a vivid reminder that the past is filled with such unexpected intersections, where the mundane becomes extraordinary, and the everyday object transforms into a cultural icon. It's a fascinating insight into the intricate tapestry of human history, woven with threads of flour and vanity. The methods for preparing the flour for wig powder were quite specific. The wheat or other grains would be finely ground, then often sieved multiple times to remove any coarser particles, ensuring a smooth, consistent powder. This fine milling was crucial for achieving the desired delicate texture and even application. Sometimes, the flour would also be bolted, a process of passing it through a fine cloth or mesh to further refine its consistency. This meticulous preparation highlights the dedication to quality, even for a product that was essentially just powdered grain. This attention to detail is a mainstream historical fact that speaks to the craftsmanship involved in the wig powder industry. You can almost hear the rhythmic grind of the millstones, churning out the fine white dust that would adorn the heads of the elite. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some very precise ladies and gentlemen would carry small, personal powdering kits with them when attending social events. These kits might contain a miniature powder puff, a tiny comb, and a small vial of fresh powder, allowing them to discreetly touch up their wigs throughout the evening. Imagine slipping away to a secluded corner of a grand ballroom, pulling out your miniature powdering kit, and giving your wig a quick refresh. It speaks to an almost obsessive concern with maintaining a pristine appearance, even in the midst of revelry. You can almost hear a hushed whisper, "Darling, your wig needs a slight dusting," "I have just the thing," a true sign of dedication to the look. Historians still debate the extent to which the powdered wig contributed to a sense of national identity in Britain. While it was a pan-European fashion, did its adoption and adaptation in Britain create a distinctively British style? Or did it merely reflect broader European trends? Some scholars argue that the more understated, less flamboyant English wig styles, compared to their French counterparts, symbolized a uniquely British sensibility. Others contend that fashion was largely international during this period, with little truly distinctive national character. It's a subtle yet intriguing question, exploring the interplay between global trends and local interpretations. You can almost imagine an Englishman scoffing at the excesses of the French wigs, asserting the superior elegance of his own, less ostentatious, powdered coiffure. You notice a faint scent, perhaps of old wood and something vaguely musty, wafting from a nearby abandoned building. It's a reminder of the passage of time, of buildings and lives that have faded into history, leaving only faint traces behind. The scent is a quiet echo of the past, as subtle as the lingering dust of a powdered wig. It's a gentle, unassuming presence that adds to the quiet solemnity of the night, connecting you to the distant past in a sensory way. And you find yourself taking a deep breath, trying to capture that fleeting moment of historical scent. The moon, a pale orb in the velvet sky, continues its silent vigil over the sleeping city. You've journeyed through the intriguing world of Georgian wig powder, a substance so commonplace yet so pivotal to the era's aesthetic. The more you learn, the more you realize that history is rarely as simple as it seems. Often, the grand narratives are built upon layers of the seemingly mundane, like flour dust. This discovery illuminates how deeply interconnected aspects of life can be, from agriculture to fashion, from economics to personal hygiene. The humble bread crumb, in its powdered form, truly played a starring role on the heads of Georgian society. The method of applying the powder was also crucial for achieving the desired effect. Special powdering bellows were often used, allowing the wigmaker or servant to create a fine cloud of powder that would settle evenly over the wig, ensuring complete coverage and a uniform white appearance. These bellows, often made of leather and wood, were simple but effective tools, essential for the daily ritual. This systematic approach to application is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the methodical nature of Georgian grooming. Imagine the soft puffing sound of the bellows, a quiet rhythm accompanying the morning preparations for a day in high society. It truly was an art, ensuring no part of the wig was left unpowdered. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some imaginative individuals would occasionally experiment with colored powders, though these were rare and largely confined to theatrical performances or highly eccentric individuals. While white was overwhelmingly the dominant color, there are scattered accounts of wigs being powdered with pink, blue, or even green hues for specific events or characters. Imagine the shock and amusement a vibrant pink wig would cause in a sea of pristine white. It speaks to a subtle, almost rebellious, undercurrent of creativity within the rigid confines of Georgian fashion. You can almost hear the gasps from the audience as an actor steps onto the stage with a shockingly blue wig. A truly bold fashion ch. Ois, even for the stage. Historians still debate the influence of climate on the popularity and practicality of powdered wigs. Was the often damp and humid British climate particularly challenging for maintaining powdered wigs, leading to faster degradation or clumping of the powder? Or did the dry indoor heating, common in wealthier homes, helped to preserve the wigs and keep the powder dry. Some scholars suggest that the climate played a significant role in the daily struggles of wig maintenance, while others argue that ingenuity and consistent repowdering largely overcame any environmental challenges. It's a fascinating ecological question, exploring how environmental factors can interact with cultural practices. You can almost imagine someone complaining about the damp weather making their wig sag, a truly miserable state of affairs for the fashion-conscious. You notice a faint, sweet smell, perhaps of jasmine or honeysuckle, drifting from a nearby garden. It's a pleasant contrast to the imaginary scent of flower and horsehair, a gentle reminder of the beauty that existed alongside the peculiarities of Georgian life. This fleeting natural aroma offers a moment of serenity, a quiet counterpoint to the more bustling and dusty historical landscape you've been exploring. It's a sensory detail that anchors you in the present, even as your mind wanders through the past, and you find yourself taking a deep, appreciative breath, letting the sweet fragrance fill your senses. The night sky is now a deep, inky black, dotted with a scattering of stars. You reflect on the sheer commitment that wearing a powdered wig demanded. It wasn't a choice made lightly. It was a daily ritual, a significant expense, and a constant battle against the elements and the inevitable dust. This level of dedication to a fashion trend speaks volumes about the societal pressures and the importance of appearance in Georgian England. The powdered wig wasn't just a style. It was a way of life, a pervasive influence that touched every aspect of society, from the highest aristocrat to the humble street sweeper. It truly was an era defined by its powdered heads. The process of depowdering and cleaning a wig was also an intricate affair. Wigs would need to be periodically taken apart, washed, and restyled. This was a messy and time-consuming process, often involving harsh soaps and brushes, followed by a thorough drying and then the meticulous repowdering. The hair, whether human or animal, would absorb the powder and any pomades, requiring a deep clean to restore its original condition. This laborious cleaning process is a mainstream historical fact that underscores the continuous upkeep required to maintain these elaborate creations. Imagine the sheer effort involved in cleaning what was essentially a giant, elaborate hairpiece covered in flour and grease. You can almost hear the wig cleaner sighing, "Another one. Good heavens, this will take all day." A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some individuals would try to prolong the life of their powdered wigs by wearing specially designed wig cases or wig boxes when traveling. These cases, often made of wood or leather, were designed to protect the delicate coiffure from damage, dust, and moisture during transit. Imagine the sight of a grand carriage, its roof laden with several large, rather cumbersome wig boxes, each carefully protecting a precious powdered creation. It speaks to the value placed on these wigs and the lengths people would go to preserve them. You can almost picture a Georgian traveler fretting over the safety of their wig, more so than their luggage. Is the wig secure? My reputation depends on it. A truly high-stakes journey for the hair. Historians still debate the role of the powdered wig in the development of modern cosmetology. Did the techniques and products developed for wig care, such as various powders, pomades, and styling tools, lay the groundwork for later advances in hair care and makeup? Some scholars argue that the Georgian era, with its intense focus on artificial beauty, was a precursor to the modern cosmetics industry. Others contend that the specific nature of wig care, distinct from natural hair care, limited its direct influence on later developments. It's a fascinating question, exploring the long-term legacy of a seemingly obsolete fashion. You can almost imagine a Georgian wig maker, unknowingly pioneering the techniques that would one day be used in a modern salon. You notice the soft glow of a distant street lamp, its light illuminating a small, almost invisible cloud of dust rising from the ground as a gentle breeze stirs. It's a subtle echo of the countless clouds of powder that once billowed through these very streets, a silent testament to a bygone era. The dust, in its quiet movement, seems to carry the whispers of the past, the faint murmurs of Georgian society. It's a reminder that even the most ephemeral elements of history can leave an indelible mark, lingering in the air like a forgotten scent, and you feel a strange sense of connection to those who walked these streets centuries ago, their heads dusted with what was, essentially, breadcrumbs. The deep quiet of the night continues, a perfect backdrop for contemplating the enduring legacy of something as seemingly simple as wig powder. You've uncovered how a practical solution to a fashionable demand evolved into a defining characteristic of an entire historical period. The story of Georgian wig powder is a compelling example of how human ingenuity, social pressures, and available resources converge to create unique cultural phenomena. It's a reminder that even the most seemingly outlandish practices of the past often have logical, if peculiar, origins rooted in the realities of their time. The breadcrumbs, or their refined cousins, truly tell a much larger story. The use of scented powders was not just about masking odors. It was also a way to further enhance the luxuriousness and status of the wig. Expensive perfumes, derived from flowers, spices, or animal musk, would be incorporated into the powder, creating a multi-sensory experience that further distinguished the wearer. This deliberate use of scent as a status symbol is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the Georgian era's emphasis on sensory indulgence and refined living. Imagine encountering someone whose wig not only looked immaculate, but also exuded a delightful, exotic fragrance. It was a subtle yet powerful way to convey wealth and sophistication. You can almost picture a Georgian lady sniffing her own powdered wig, a look of serene satisfaction on her face, knowing she smells absolutely divine. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some adventurous individuals, particularly during outdoor events, would sometimes use a lighter, more absorbent powder, or even rice flour to prevent their wigs from clumping in damp weather. This adaptation to environmental conditions speaks to the practical considerations that often influenced fashion choices, even in an era of extravagance. It's a testament to the ingenuity of the Georgian fashionistas, constantly seeking ways to maintain their impeccable appearance despite the unpredictable British weather. You can almost hear a concerned whisper, "My dear, I do hope it doesn't rain. My powder simply won't hold." A true fear for the fashionably inclined. Historians still debate the precise moment or event that truly signaled the beginning of the end for the powdered wig. Was it the execution of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, symbolically decapitating the monarchy, and by extension, its associated fashion? Was it the rising tide of Enlightenment ideals, which favored naturalness and simplicity over artificiality and extravagance? Or was it simply a natural shift in fashion, driven by the whims of designers and tastemakers? It's likely a confluence of factors, a slow unraveling rather than a single decisive moment. The decline was a multifaceted phenomenon, reflecting profound shifts in society, politics, and aesthetics. You can almost imagine a fashion columnist of the day attempting to pinpoint the exact moment when powdered wigs finally went out. You notice a single, perfectly round drop of dew clinging to a leaf, reflecting the distant street lamp like a tiny, luminous pearl. It's a fleeting moment of natural beauty, a quiet counterpoint to the more artificial glamour of the powdered wigs. This delicate detail reminds you of the subtle artistry of the natural world, a stark contrast to the human-made artistry of the past. It's a peaceful image, one that evokes a sense of calm and gentle contemplation as you continue your journey through the historical night. And you find yourself mesmerized by its fragile beauty, a miniature world captured in a single drop. The city slumbers peacefully, enveloped in the quiet hush of the late night. You've explored the fascinating dual nature of Georgian wig powder, how it was simultaneously a practical solution and a powerful symbol of status and wealth. This inherent contradiction, a humble ingredient elevated to an essential component of high fashion, makes the story all the more compelling. It's a testament to the ingenuity and often surprising resourcefulness of past societies, using what was available to them to meet their cultural and aesthetic demands. The legacy of bread crumbs on aristocratic heads is indeed a rich one. The societal impact of the powdered wig was profound. It dictated social etiquette, influenced personal grooming habits, and even shaped the architecture of homes, with higher doorways and dedicated powdering rooms. The wig was not merely an accessory. It was an integral part of the social fabric, a visible manifestation of the intricate rules and hierarchies of Georgian society. This pervasive influence on daily life is a mainstream historical fact that emphasizes the all-encompassing nature of fashion trends in certain historical periods. Imagine trying to navigate social gatherings without a properly powdered wig. It would be akin to showing up to a black tie event in your pajamas. Utterly unthinkable. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some wig makers would occasionally use bird droppings, particularly those from pigeons, to achieve a particularly bright white shade of powder, believing the natural bleaching agents in the droppings would enhance the whiteness. While this practice was rare and undoubtedly unhygienic, it speaks to the extreme lengths some would go to achieve the coveted pristine white. Imagine the horrified reaction of a modern person to such a practice. It truly highlights the vastly different hygiene standards and aesthetic priorities of the past. You can almost hear the disgusted whispers, "My dear, I do believe there's a rather peculiar scent to her wig." A truly revolting, yet historically documented method. Historians still debate the role of satire and caricature in the decline of the powdered wig. Did the constant mockery in cartoons and plays, often depicting the wigs as absurd and impractical, contribute to a shift in public opinion and hasten their demise? Or did these satirical representations merely reflect a pre-existing decline in popularity, rather than causing it? Some scholars argue that humor and ridicule can be powerful tools for social change, subtly undermining established norms. Others suggest that fashion trends have their own internal momentum, largely independent of external commentary. It's a fascinating question about the power of cultural critique. You can almost imagine a Georgian gentleman seeing himself satirized in a cartoon, perhaps having a moment of self-awareness about the sheer absurdity of his own towering hair. You notice a faint glimmer of light from a distant window, perhaps a candle still burning in a sleepy household. It's a tiny beacon in the darkness, a quiet testament to the enduring rhythm of human life, even in the deepest hours of the night. This small point of light offers a sense of continuity, connecting the past to the present, a subtle reminder that life, in all its forms, continues to unfold, and you find yourself drawn to its quiet warmth, a comforting presence in the historical night. The first faint hint of dawn is just beginning to lighten the eastern sky, painting the rooftops with a soft, ethereal glow. You've journeyed through the intriguing life cycle of Georgian wig powder, from its humble origins in the flour mill to its dazzling appearance on the heads of the elite. It's a story that encapsulates the spirit of an era, a period of both grandeur and curious practicality. The fact that something as fundamental as breadcrumbs could become so central to fashion is a powerful reminder of how human societies adapt, improvise, and often create beauty from the most unexpected sources. The journey of flour has been quite extraordinary. The cost of maintaining a powdered wig was not insignificant, especially for those who desired the finest powders and the most elaborate styles. This expense included not only the wig itself and the powder, but also the services of wig makers and dressers, and the various accessories needed for its care. For many, it was a considerable portion of their annual budget, a testament to the societal pressure to maintain appearances. This financial burden is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the economic implications of fashion and the lengths people would go to participate in prevailing trends. Imagine calculating your monthly budget and realizing that a significant chunk is going towards keeping your hair perfectly white and powdered. A truly dedicated investment in looking good. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that there are accounts of barbers and wig makers employing young boys, often referred to as powder monkeys, whose sole job was to apply the powder to wigs, sometimes using specialized techniques to ensure even coverage. These boys, often covered in a fine layer of white dust themselves, would have worked long hours in often unventilated conditions. It's a rather poignant image, highlighting the labor-intensive nature of the wig industry and the often overlooked human cost of maintaining such elaborate fashions. You can almost hear the constant sniffing and coughing from these young workers, a grim reality behind the glamour. Another wig, sir. Coming right up. Just let me get my lungs full of this delicious flour. A truly unfortunate job, one would think. Historians still debate the precise health implications of wearing and working with powdered wigs for prolonged periods. While direct, causative links are difficult to establish, some scholars suggest that the constant inhalation of fine particulate matter could have exacerbated existing respiratory conditions or contributed to new ones, particularly for those in the wig trade. Others argue that the overall poor air quality of Georgian sea IDs makes it difficult to isolate the impact of wig powder alone. It's a challenging area of historical inquiry, requiring careful analysis of limited medical records and environmental data. However, it's undeniable that working in a perpetual cloud of flour dust couldn't have been entirely beneficial. You notice a single, faint bird song, a tentative chirp breaking the stillness of the pre-dawn. It's a gentle reminder of the natural world awakening, a quiet counterpoint to the more man-made and artificial aspects of the Georgian era. This subtle sound offers a sense of renewal, of the world slowly coming to life after a period of rest. It's a peaceful way to conclude your journey through the night, a soft whisper from nature welcoming the new day. And you find yourself smiling, a quiet acknowledgement of the beauty of the world then and now. The sky is now a pale blue, with streaks of orange and pink announcing the imminent arrival of the sun. You've journeyed through the nocturnal landscape of Georgian London, your mind filled with images of powdered wigs, bustling streets, and the surprisingly central role of a humble foodstuff. The story of why Georgian wig powder was basically bread crumbs is not just a quirky historical fact. It's a window into the values, technologies, and social dynamics of an entire era. It underscores how every detail, no matter how small, contributes to the rich tapestry of history, offering insights into lives lived long ago. It's a wonderful reminder that history truly is everywhere, if you only know where to look. The decline of the powdered wig in the late 18th and early 19th centuries was also marked by a shift towards more practical and less flamboyant hairstyles. The new aesthetic favored natural hair, often cut shorter and styled in simpler ways, reflecting a broader cultural shift towards classicism and a rejection of the perceived excesses of the Baroque and Rococo periods. This aesthetic revolution is a mainstream historical fact that demonstrates the ever-changing nature of beauty standards and the cyclical movement of fashion. The age of powder gave way to an era of natural elegance, a quiet rebellion against the towering confections of the past. You can almost hear the collective sigh of relief from countless Georgian heads, finally free from the burden of their powdered monuments. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some wigs, particularly those worn by women for formal occasions, were so heavy and elaborately constructed that they required internal supports or frameworks made of wire or even light wood to maintain their shape. These internal structures, meticulously hidden beneath layers of hair and powder, were essential for creating the towering and complex coiffures. Imagine wearing a piece of architecture on your head, complete with hidden scaffolding. It speaks to the incredible engineering that went into these seemingly frivolous accessories. You can almost picture a wig maker carefully assembling the internal framework, a true architect of hair. Just a bit more support here, my dear. We can't have your poof collapsing mid-ball. Historians still debate the extent to which the decline of the powdered wig was influenced by economic factors beyond the wig tax. Did the rising cost of living, or changes in global trade and agricultural practices, make flour more expensive and therefore less feasible for widespread use as hair powder? Or did new economic opportunities lead to shifts in consumer spending, with less money allocated to elaborate personal adornment? It's a multifaceted economic question that requires careful analysis of market trends and household budgets from the period. You can almost imagine a Georgian gentleman looking at his dwindling finances, making the reluctant decision to forego his daily powdering. Alas, my dear, it seems my head must now reflect the state of my purse. You notice the very first rays of the sun, painting the sky with a breathtaking display of color. It's a quiet, profound moment, signaling the end of the night and the beginning of a new day. This natural spectacle offers a sense of hope and renewal, a gentle transition from darkness to light. It's a beautiful, peaceful image that brings your historical journey to a gentle close, leaving you with a sense of wonder at the passage of time and the enduring beauty of the world. And you feel a warmth spreading through you, a soft comfort as the world awakens. The sun is now fully above the horizon, casting golden light across the awakening city. You've journeyed through the peculiar, yet utterly fascinating history of Georgian wig powder, a story that proves how even the smallest details of the past can illuminate an entire era. From the humble flour mill to the grandest ballroom, the presence of these powdered confections shaped society, influenced economies, and defined the very aesthetic of a time. It's a testament to the fact that history is woven into every aspect of our lives, often in ways we least expect, waiting to be discovered and understood. The bread crumbs, you now know, were far more than just food. They were the very essence of Georgian style. The complete disappearance of powdered wigs from everyday fashion by the early 19th century was a testament to the powerful shifts in societal norms and aesthetic preferences. While they continued to be worn in certain ceremonial contexts, such as by judges or at court, their widespread adoption by the general public ceased almost entirely. This definitive end to a dominant fashion trend is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the dynamism of cultural evolution, how even deeply entrenched practices can eventually fade into obscurity. The Georgian era, with its white dusted heads, truly became a thing of the past, making way for new ideals of beauty and presentation. You can almost imagine an older generation shaking their heads at the new, simpler styles, lamenting the loss of grandeur. These young people, no sense of proper elegance. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely devoted fashionistas would occasionally commission wigs made entirely of human hair from specific regions, believing that the texture and color of the hair would take the powder better, resulting in a more luminous and natural white. This pursuit of the perfect raw material, even when it would be entirely obscured by powder, speaks to an almost obsessive attention to detail and a desire for absolute authenticity beneath the artificiality. Imagine the lengths to which hair merchants would go to source such specific hair, traveling across continents for the ideal texture. You can almost hear a wig connoisseur declare, "Ah, yes, this powder sits beautifully on this particular Hungarian hair." A truly refined, if slightly bizarre, connoisseurship. Historians still debate the precise interplay between class, fashion, and the adoption of the powdered wig. While initially a symbol of aristocracy, it gradually filtered down through the social strata. Did this democratization of the wig contribute to its eventual decline, as the elite sought new ways to differentiate themselves? Or did the widespread adoption merely reflect the irresistible appeal of a popular trend, regardless of social standing? It's a complex sociological question, exploring how fashion both reinforces and subtly challenges existing social hierarchies. You can almost imagine the frustration of a Georgian aristocrat, seeing their once exclusive fashion now sported by the burgeoning middle class, forcing them to seek out new sartorial distinctions. You notice the city stirring, the first sounds of morning traffic beginning to filter through the air. It's a gentle reawakening, a gradual return to the rhythms of modern life. This subtle shift from historical contemplation to present-day awareness offers a sense of connection, bridging the gap between past and present. It's a comforting thought, realizing that the echoes of history continue to resonate in the world around us, if we only take the time to listen. And you feel a profound sense of gratitude for the stories that the past holds, waiting to be unveiled. So, as the world outside your window slowly begins to stir, or perhaps is already in full swing, I hope this journey through the powdered world of Georgian wigs has offered you a gentle escape. Imagine those grand, white-dusted heads, the subtle scent of flower, and the intricate rituals that defined an era. It's a reminder that even the most peculiar fashions have a story to tell, a deeper history rooted in the everyday. As you drift off, let the images of bustling Georgian streets, the soft puff of wig powder, and the quiet dignity of a bygone age fill your mind. There's no need to worry about the dust or the discomfort. Those are simply echoes, now softened by the gentle embrace of time. Your own bed is far more comfortable, your own hair blissfully unpowdered. Feel the warmth of your blankets, the cool air on your skin, and let your thoughts slow, like a carriage gently rolling down a cobbled street in the quiet hours before dawn. Rest easy, knowing that history, in all its strange and wonderful forms, is always there, waiting patiently for you to explore it again. Good night.